listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So I don't want to be nosy or anything. However, I am curious about both of your freezers because I have, for some reason, my refrigerator comes with 2 drawers, and I have this habit of whatever I'm just like, oh, I'm not going to eat this right now. I'll just put it in the freezer, or I don't know. And it is a jungle. It is a wild place.
You told us once that you put uneaten leftover chips in the freezer.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard of. I've never heard of anyone doing that before.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand, like, does it work? Like, you unfreeze your chips, do they taste fresh?
Wouldn't they be soggy?
You know, it probably not great. It's not, but I just tried it. But tonight I was disappointed because I've been starting to eat the food in my freezer a little bit more frequently, like, you know, look and see what's in there or maybe throw it out. But I was just like curious about when you get peckish at home, do you always have something you can eat, or like what's the snack situation and how does your freezer work in?
The freezer does not factor into my snacks, but I eat like a toddler. I have goldfish crackers everywhere and Cheez-Its. But the flavored goldfish crackers and Cheez-Its, like the fancy ones.
Oh, I'm so jealous. That is... See, I am that person that goes grocery shopping and thinks, I will not need this. I do not need this. I come home feeling very smug, and then give me an hour, and I'm so regretful. It's just been like, I want to cry. I've just obviously made huge life mistakes, and I just don't have any snacks. I have for some reason, and I did read the other day that somebody was trying to come up with a new word for when you're grocery shopping and you assume you have no chickpeas at home, so you buy another can. And then you get home and you've probably got about 50 cans of chickpeas. Does anyone fall into that?
I currently have 7 cans of chickpeas. If anybody wants hummus, come to East Vancouver.
But
I'll hook you up.
Is it the same reason you go out and you think, oh, I don't have any?
Yeah, you order groceries because, you know, my wife has a disability, so I'm like, we have to get chickpeas because I'm going to make a salad. I never make the salad. The salad is this fictional thing I've created, this chickpea salad that is going to materialize when I have the will. But now I have 7 cans of chickpeas. So I'm just like, well, I'll use them for something. It's just a matter of what and when.
Yeah, I find that you have some idea that you're going to, like, buy nutritious food, especially when it's like on special or on sale or something. You're like, yes, I will eat chickpeas or these lentils or tofu or something, you know, this week because it'll be good. And then
I can't talk about lentils. I have too many.
And then I just never feel like eating them ever.
Well, there was that. Do you remember a couple of years ago? Maybe it could have been pandemic time when everyone was like so jazzed about the Alison Roman stew. Does anyone remember that?
Is that the forever stew? They kept adding to it?
No, this is just a chickpea stew. So
okay.
I was just going to suggest it for your issue with the chickpeas. Alison Roman's stew is one of the best ways I've ever seen of using chickpeas. It's vegetarian
really?
Too, so yeah. I don't know if you're vegan or anything, but it's not quite vegan. You could probably make it vegan, could you? Maybe, but
don't tell the East Van queers, but I'm not a vegan, and I'm also allergic to kale. And if that gets out, they'll run me out of town.
Allergic to kale?
Oh,
yeah, I can't have kale.
Really? What's in the kale?
I know. It's an allergy. I can't have it.
Wow.
And I'm terrified that if the East Van vegans hear about that, they will run me out of the city.
You can do a spinach, though,
but yeah,
right?
you're not allergic to any.
Oh, yeah, spinach. Yeah, spinach is good.
You're not allergic to any flavor of goldfish.
No, goldfish are great.
Because
I haven't tried an actual living one, but that remains to be seen.
Have you tried Old Bay flavored goldfish?
Where are there Old Bay flavored goldfish?
They're only available in the States. So you would have had to go to like Washington State to get it. However, they kind of went viral because Lisa Loeb was paid to be the spokesperson for Old Bay Goldfish, and she rewrote her hit song "Stay."
No,
but with goldfish lyrics.
Stop.
And not just like the chorus or anything. She rewrote the entire song to be about goldfish crackers.
How did I miss this? When did this happen?
When did this happen?
Yeah.
This was last year.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll put the link in our podcast notes. But like she recreated the video too for the ad. And she looks and sounds exactly the same as the original song. Only this song's only about Old Bay Goldfish.
I'm obsessed.
I can't believe it didn't. I mean, it's maybe because the crackers, that particular flavor was only available in the United States. So maybe that's why Canadians didn't see this ad. But I'm a little shocked that it didn't go more worldwide viral than it did, because it's quite something. It's like,
Is she as cool as we think she is? Like, is she actually still cool, or is she just like nostalgic cool?
I don't know, but
She looks exactly the same, if that helps. I mean, literally, this video. I mean,
yeah.
Holy cow.
The thing sounds the same, like her. Yeah, it's a perfect recreation of her original hit song and video, only about Old Bay Goldfish. Which,
This is so
I mean,
niche.
hats off to her. Cash that paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything, I mean, I think we can all feel quite comfortable with both of those products. So I'm not feeling terrible, you know. It's, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it wasn't a fan outcry. What have you done? You know, everyone was all like, yeah, this makes sense to me. This is something I can get behind or eat. I've only, you know, I'll be honest, I didn't even really, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know Old Bay until a couple of years ago when I went to a local place and they had Old Bay popcorn with beers. And it was amazing.
It's good.
We used to live sort of adjacent to Maryland, and in that state, well, I guess we used to live in Pennsylvania, and in Maryland, Old Bay, they put Old Bay on everything. It's like salt. And you go to a restaurant and like the only thing they have is like Old Bay flavored everything, like the crab, the potatoes,
Can
like
you get
the
it
salad.
here? Is it like on the shelf?
You can buy it here.
You can. Oh.
And so like
I've had Old Bay hot sauce.
Oh.
I've tried the Old Bay vodka.
Okay.
But now I need to get the goldfish. I have a friend from Maryland, and it is a way of life. Old Bay is a lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, the first few times I went out, I was like, this is burning my throat and like, I can't, it's too much. It's like coated on everything. I can't stand it. But then after you eat it a few times, you start craving it and you want to go back to the place where they coat everything in Old Bay. I don't know like what they put in Old Bay, but you start off hating it and then you love it and can't live without it.
There's sort of a Stockholm syndrome to some food, you know, like you're very, I can't, no. And then all of a sudden, I love it. This is for me. Yeah.
Well, because they do like crab boils in Maryland because they have I think it's the blue crabs there. And so, they just like steam them and then coat them with Old Bay. And then you dip it in butter.
Oh. All right. Well.
But anyway.
That's not in my freezer. None of those products. None of those things are in my house.
But the Lisa Loeb Old Bay Goldfish commercial segged into a conversation people were having about Reality Bites and how it was kind of like ironic because the movie's about selling out. And the songs from that movie, right?
Yeah, but I remember when we did the movie for the podcast. And I know one of the things we often do here, and we're going to do it with the movie coming up, is do you remember how you felt about it the first time you saw it? And what about this time? And I couldn't specifically remember with Reality Bites, but I was pretty sure I was probably on side with Ethan Hawke and thought Ben Stiller was some kind of horrid shill. And then I rewatched it and I was like, oh my God, Ben Stiller is like a secure, good man. You know, like he'd be there for you. You know what Ethan Hawke's going to do? He's going to be out of there. He's going to be a dirtbag forever with like 6 kids in different cities. And And it just stopped being romantic. So now I'm all, as you said, I don't know what selling out is. I do know what cashing a paycheck is on some kind of art you made. So well done, Lisa Loeb.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
well, maybe it's a signal of how societal attitudes have changed towards the idea of selling out, that like Ben Stiller is the hero of Reality Bites and Lisa Loeb is the hero of Old Bay Goldfish.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because Ben Stiller wrote Reality Bites, and so I wonder what he was doing. Did he see that? I remember that was a take someone had, which made me laugh so hard on the movie Titanic. This woman wrote this piece, and she said, I'll tell you, my girlfriend dated a lot of those Leo losers, and they left them in the lurch. They seem really fun for a while. They're just living life for the moment. And I went, oh, that's true. That is what that movie's about.
Yeah.
So she was like, not that sad about him sinking to the bottom of the ocean.
In fact, she was very like, that was a very good way. There will be another, she'll meet another one of him. He will exist somewhere else. She can get on another plane and he'll be there too. Yeah, I won these tickets in a poker match. Oh, okay, good. Good for you.
Yeah, the next transatlantic crossing, so she'll see another one.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not an artist. Maybe he's just like a painter or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to say that about Titanic. It did show her going on to like have a good life after that. Like she didn't need to marry that, like either of them.
No, I wouldn't say that's like the Ben Stiller. That man was truly evil. We saw him like push children out of a lifeboat. No, I mean, I think I think he was Billy Zane, right? I think he was, there was no hope for that man. It was bad. And then I think Rose became like a potter or something, didn't she? Isn't that what the flashbacks were? So maybe Leo's artistic talent somehow rubbed off on her, but I don't think she needed him, as you said.
I wonder if like Billy Zane ever, because like in a generation of people, he is like ingrained as this like super evil villain. Like, can you ever not be a villain to people anymore on screen after that?
I saw Robert Carlyle. Do you know that actor? He was in Trainspotting. He was in. He was making that show in Steveston, that Once Upon a Time. Now, I don't know what kind of character he played there, but I remember Begbie very well from Trainspotting. And when I saw him, part of me was kind of like, stand back. I mean, this man's volatile. It was weird. It was, like you said, like and then he turned out to obviously to be an extremely friendly and generous person. But at the time, I was just like, oh my gosh, maybe he's got a pint behind his back and he's going to smash it on my head. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like Billy Zane, especially to me, will always kind of have that evil bad guy look in his eyes.
But he has his face. He just has villain face.
Yeah, he just has villain face.
Resting villain face.
Resting villain face.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm not I mean, he was perfect villain for Titanic, right? So,
Yeah.
I guess his
But
character
what did he do after that? Do we know him to be in like movies where he was then the hero of after that?
That's a good question. I'm just looking up.
I can't think of one thing I've seen him in besides Titanic.
So maybe we have our answer.
He was in Tombstone, Dead Calm, Back to the Future. I don't remember him in that.
Back to the Future? Really?
That's what it
the
says.
first one?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did he play the villain in Dead Calm?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit of typecasting with
yeah, exactly.
Votes.
I
Okay,
think he's
gotcha.
Yeah. If you look at the picture of him on his Wikipedia page, he just looks like a nice guy.
Like a cute little sailor in that striped shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But maybe it's like, like if you metal, you meet these guys in these intense bands that are spewing fire or whatever they're doing. And then you meet them and they're just like, hey, nice to meet you. It's good. Thanks for coming to the show. Maybe it's that kind of contrast or something. They get it all out in their art.
Yeah.
Isn't don't metalheads usually dance to the Venga Boys and Aqua between sets at shows? I've seen so many TikToks of a circle pit to Barbie Girl.
Yeah,
Really?
that's when I went to see Mastodon. The song that was playing when we left was Huey Lewis and the News. So, of course, that could have been their way of saying a room cleaner. But I don't. But then I noticed everybody was walking out singing "If This Is It, Please Let Me Know." And everyone seemed very excited. So. You never know.
That's a good tune. It's a good tune that everyone knows. Yeah.
I know. I feel like I've had a revision thinking on Huey Lewis too.
Why?
Well, I think he's got a musical right now, a Broadway musical that just opened. And of his songs and
watching duets?
No, that didn't do it for me. But there was something. Oh yeah, I dipped into that documentary that's on Netflix about the making of We Are the World.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you've watched it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
But Huey Lewis comes out so kind and sweet, and he was like, he had to do this big part with his voice, and he was really scared because he was with Harry Belafonte and Diana Ross, and
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Springsteen and et cetera, right? But he was so nervous, and I just thought that was really charming about him.
It was, yeah. And Diana Ross seemed very chill in that compared to how I have heard of her being portrayed everywhere else in the pop music realm. I was like, oh, she's getting autographs and, trying to make connections. That's so cute.
Yeah, that was the greatest night in pop.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought I really Cyndi Lauper's journey through that whole documentary was so interesting because she kind of first really she doesn't want to do it and is just trying to get out of it up until the last minute. And then then she has all these issues with no one can figure out that her jewelry is causing all the mic problems for a very long time. They consider throwing out the mic, whatever. And then, she kind of nails her vocal part after all of this and is almost one of the most memorable parts of the song is her freestyling at the end there.
Yeah, there's a certain, I have to say, I think it's quite a short documentary, really. I guess they only can use the footage they have from that recording, but it started to make me very stressed because everything they were doing is okay, it's now 4 a.m. and now it's 5 a.m. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm not even involved, but I just started feeling this great wave of pressure to get this song done.
What if they didn't record it?
I know. That's what I was thinking about.
We know they did.
Yeah, I know.
We know they clearly have it.
But I was thinking about the people in the booth. Just
yeah,
it was so much pressure.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I think I always hold a special place in my heart for the British one, but I just the what is Do They Know It's Christmas? The first one.
Oh yeah,
yeah, the Bob Geldof one. But was he involved in the second one then? That American version?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I didn't see him.
I remember they mentioned him, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it was inspired by Bob Geldof.
Yeah, and then we did our Canadian version, Tears Are Not Enough. So it was a crazy time in pop music, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, which song did you like the best?
I never liked We Are the World.
Yeah.
I just always thought, I mean, I think, honestly, all of the songs are quite awful. They all are so arrogant, weirdly. Do They Know It's Christmas? I don't know. They're in Ethiopia. Probably not. It just didn't.
Why would they care? Why would they even care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very Eurocentric.
Yeah.
I know it is. But there was something kind of charming and naive about the fact that they were all very young. And, in England, Christmas is a big deal. So, I kind of got that.
Yeah, just want to share the joy, spread the love, just to countries where this is not something that is top of mind for anybody, but just in case it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it had kind of a rough and tumble feel. And then that We Are the World, it just is not, I just don't like the song. Do you?
No. And then, but yeah, my favorite was tears are not enough out of
Yeah,
the three.
probably. Yeah. And also really a better message, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how this segues into our conversation, but it should somehow.
Well, I guess it's like, speaking of influential pop culture from
Ba-boom.
decades past.
You did it.
There you go.
Yeah.
We are talking about the adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, today. You're listening to Pop This. My name is Andrea Gin.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
Hello, I'm Sidney.
Welcome to the podcast, Sidney.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm stoked.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for choosing this movie to talk about.
I mean, when you give me the list, I was just like, okay, there's three top of mind, but Priscilla has to be it. I love this movie so much. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Well, we had it on our list because it's the 30th anniversary of the movie this year. And also last month, it was announced that a sequel is in the works featuring the three original cast members.
Yep.
Which
that's
quite exciting.
Also, timely wise, it's also Cannes movie season, and that's where it really took off, right? When it played at Cannes, that's where it really got its big nudge into becoming this huge hit.
And they recently recovered the original bus from a junkyard, basically somewhere. And it's become like a heritage item in Australia. So like
Wow.
the government is like working on restoring it so they can like display it somewhere. And it might make an appearance in the sequel. So
Did it come with the shoe? Do we know if the shoe was still attached to it, or has the shoe gone missing?
I haven't read anything about the shoe, but
And Furioso starts in a few days. And that,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I was just when I was watching this movie, I was really thinking about a lot about Australian cinema. And, because I read something about how this movie came out pre-internet and like sharing. So there was something very uniquely Australian happening that was kind of isolated to them and not the rest of the world. And I really thought a lot about Mad Max when I was watching, and I don't know if anyone else did, but that was what I mean, not all the time, obviously, but there was something in the aesthetic that I was noticing, and obviously the desert.
well, some people have noted that this movie came out around the same time as Strictly Ballroom, which was 92, and Muriel's Wedding.
Yeah.
And I don't know this movie, but The Sum of Us.
I should know that. My best friend in junior high was obsessed with In Excess, the band,
Oh yeah.
and specifically Michael Hutchence. So I got a crash course in all things Australian for about 3 years,
But
including this movie.
but yeah, this it's sort of like that set of movies is considered like, I don't know, like a new era of Australian film, maybe like where people saw Australian society differently because of movies like this. Whereas before it was like about Crocodile Dundee style,
Yeah.
Yeah.
stereotypes. But yeah.
And also Bob starred in Muriel's Wedding as Muriel's dad.
Yes.
That's where I know him from. I was trying to think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I should have IMDb the characters, but I was like,
Yeah.
he was probably in something else.
Yeah, he died. Really sad. It was like he was only 71 or something. Not, but I was like, he's so familiar, and I went, oh my God, he's Muriel's dad. Anyway, that's I love
What
Muriel's
is it with
Wedding
the Australians and ABBA?
Yes,
The Australians
yes.
and ABBA. I have,
Yes.
because I was like, okay, there's so many ABBA references through all of Priscilla, and the entirety of Muriel's Wedding is ABBA. Like, is this like a cultural phenomenon? Like, can somebody explain to me?
Yeah, I mean, that is super interesting. I never made that connection before, but like, what in the 90s was going on that they wanted to, because like, I guess that would have been, was that like the first revival of ABBA?
Okay, here we go. I just looked up ABBA and Australia. That's all I typed in. And I got the first.
Okay.
The first question was, why is ABBA so big in Australia? And it says, so how did Australia help catapult ABBA to stardom? Countdown host Ian Molly Meldrum began playing their music videos to Australian audiences. We got a great reaction from the public, Molly told Sunday Night. In fact, the moment Mamma Mia went on sale in Australia, it shot straight to number one. So,
But I mean, like that was when they first came out, like 70s.
70s, yeah.
So like this was like 20 years later. So
But there's tons of, I'm just sitting here now looking, there's tons of articles about ABBA and Australia and their obsession.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
well, before we dive in, we should read the bio of Sid so everybody can be familiar with who you are. I can take that.
Okay.
Sid is a professional queer working within the anti-violence sector. They are an Aries, a decent home cook, and an occasional drag show producer. They live in East Van with their wife, anxious rescue chihuahua, and a large himbo tabby cat.
Oh.
That is all true.
How is your chihuahua? We start off with a dog update usually on this podcast lately, so yeah.
Okay, cool. She's good. She's currently a little stressed out and confused as to why I'm sealed in the bedroom talking and not talking at her. But she's good. She's going to go have a sleepover with her cousins, two wiener dogs this week, because we're going to see Sarah McLachlan, like the homosexual stereotypes that we are. Fumbling towards the peony, yes.
Yes. It's the 30th anniversary of that album, isn't it?
Also the 30th. I
Yeah.
really feel old this week, because I'm like, wow, I'm discussing my teenage years a lot.
Oh, I'm jealous about the Sarah show. That's going to be amazing.
I'm so excited. She was at the Tori Amos show we were at a couple of years ago, and Tori started to do Building a Mystery, and every gay in the room, I was like, she's here. Where is she?
Like some kind of sixth sense.
Oh yeah, we all just like sat up like lemmings, like she's in the room, and she was in the balcony.
My spidey sense is tingling.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Lisa, do you want to read the background?
Yeah. Okay. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is a 1994 Australian road comedy film written and directed by Stephen Elliott. The plot follows three drag queens played by Hugo Weaving, Guy Pearce, and Terence Stamp, whose character is a transgender woman, as they journey across the Australian outback from Sydney to Alice Springs in a tour bus that they have named Priscilla, along the way encountering various groups and individuals. The film was a surprise worldwide hit, and its positive portrayal of LGBT individuals helped to introduce LGBT themes to a mainstream audience. It received predominantly positive reviews and won an Academy Award for Best Costume Design. Priscilla subsequently provided the basis for a musical, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which opened in 2006 in Sydney before traveling to New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Broadway. And that's from Wikipedia.
Has anyone seen the musical?
No.
No.
I don't know. Did it come to Vancouver? Or did it just go to like Toronto?
I don't remember that. I
don't remember it.
Yeah.
Sid, do you want to read the synopsis?
Yeah, sure. So Tick Belrose, a.k.a. Mitzi Delbras, a Sydney drag artist, accepts an invitation from his ex-wife to bring his stage show to the Outback. Tick recruits two friends, a brash young drag queen called Felicia, and an aging transgender woman called Bernadette. They set off for Alice Springs in a second-hand bus they dub Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. They turn heads in Broken Hill and get in a fight, I'm going to say this probably incorrectly, at Coober PD. They are rescued from breakdown in the desert by an open-minded mechanic. In Alice Springs, Tick meets the young son he barely knows. The three performers climb Kings Canyon in full drag before making their stunning debut at the Alice Springs Casino.
That sounds,
Wow.
and that's from Australian Screen. But that sounds like, on paper even, like the most amazing road trip.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, when did you first watch this movie?
Oh, I remember watching it when it came out, loving it. But I'll be honest, I just haven't really thought about it it sort of always lingered. I've always known it was there. And what makes me laugh the most, I have to say, is so when I was growing up, my mother had this obsession with that song, I've Never Been to Me. And my brother and I.
Where is that song from?
The radio. It was like a 70s
Like, who sings
hit.
it? Okay.
Someone no one's ever heard of. It's a terrible song. Anyway, my mom would put it on, and my brother and I would just die every time. So when I saw this movie, and the first song the Tick does is I've Never Been to Me, I just about lost my mind. I thought, man, then I started going, is my mom cooler than me? Like,
Maybe.
how did she know?
Maybe.
But then maybe it's just such an over the top. Do you remember listening to the beginning of the movie, the lyrics, like that I've met princes and I've done all these things. It's very 70s, but I've never been to me. And so my brother and I were always like, but you've never done anything interesting. Why is this song resonating for you? But
Wow. Ouch.
well, I know.
Shade.
Yeah, I know.
That is what we call in the business a read.
Yeah. Anyway, I just remember being really bowled over by that moment at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. Well, and when you watched it now, like, do you remember what were your feelings coming out of the movie? Like, and how did you feel about it watching it now? Like, how has it aged for you?
That's really interesting. I think that I don't think this time when I really watched Bernadette and was really moved by the performance that Terrence Stamp did, with just so much dignity and caring. And I think that over the years, I've seen some really bad actors portray transgender performers. Like, they overdo it. They work on manner, and there was just something very understated, and I thought that's what made it so powerful. I don't think I noticed it. And now, of course, it being 2024, that's Elrond from Lord of the Rings, right? That's the king of the elves. And, Guy Pearce has gone on to do all kinds of things. So it's kind of amazing to see, I think they were unknowns at the time. I think Terrence Stamp I knew from Superman.
What about you, Sid?
So I didn't see this in the theaters because I'm a little still a bit younger than you guys.
Yeah.
But I saw it when I was in high school. Again, the aforementioned friend who was obsessed with all things Australian, maybe or may not have in a very weird show of allyship was like, let's rent all these Australian movies and the one gay Australian movie we can find at Sidney Video in Nova Scotia. But I remember watching it and just thinking, this is so, because I knew about RuPaul, I knew about drag. I knew I was very queer, but it's not out yet. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like a cultural thing I should be aware of. So watching it, mostly what stood out for me when I was in my teens, the costumes and how great they were. The emus at the end send me every time. Love the emus. And it made enough of an impact on me that when I was doing my first undergrad degree, I had a hand in starting a drag show called Priscilla, Queen of the Highlands. In rural Nova Scotia.
Nice.
So it did resonate with me on several levels. And watching it now, I agree. Like there is the portrayal of Bernadette is quite good, and there's a lot of tenderness there and a lot of gentleness there. And yeah, it could have easily been played as like this over the top, like bumbling kind of thing, but he did it quite well. And this weirdly was almost a trend in the 90s because there was Tu Wong Fu that came out after this, and then there was Better Than Chocolate, the Canadian lesbian classic movie that I don't think anybody has seen besides like me and Chloe and 4 of our friends in Vancouver, but also had a trans character that was portrayed with a lot of gentleness and nuance and just politeness and grace. So it was really cool to see, even so 30 years ago, it wasn't like she wasn't the butt of the joke. She wasn't there for comedic relief. She was just her own fully formed person living her life, going through trauma. Like her partner just died because he was bleaching his hair. So the comedy about her being a sad character was not about her as a person or her transness. It was just she's in mourning. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've watched this movie, shockingly.
Ever?
Ever.
Like, ever.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just never, I've been aware of it for a very long time. but
Wow.
I've just never watched it. So, yeah, I mean, I can totally understand why it's considered a cult classic. Like, it's just, it is a product of its time. So there are some, not so great things happening in the movie that are very dated, and stereotyped. But
Are we talking about his wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just stunning right away to think about how, how huge drag culture is today and how it started, sort of nugget of it started with this movie and this movie becoming a worldwide hit, and how, that's an amazing achievement for a film to accomplish that. Right. And just thinking about the storylines that are happening and how they operate on different levels to appeal to you on different levels for different reasons. And I don't know. I also think that visually it's a stunning movie as well. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But the sort of scenes of costumes against the desert, I mean, that's how it's some of the most striking things I've seen on film. I've found it I'm sad that I hadn't watched it earlier because this is it was an amazing film.
Yeah, the scenery is almost like its own character at points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's it's gorgeous.
Yeah. So again, we kind of talked about how this movie has influenced drag. So do you occasionally produce a drag show? Do you want to talk about that?
It's more regular now, yeah. So my co-producer Dust and I, we do 2 shows at a local brewery here in Vancouver, 2 shows a month. We do an evening show that's usually a big theme. We've done Titanic, Jurassic Park.
Twister.
The Office, Twister, Schitt's Creek. My drag debut was Twister. I was the cow. That was a one and done situation. Never doing that again. But it's...
Why?
If you want a commentary on that, go ahead.
No, but why is it one and done? Because
I can't dance. I'm very bad at lip syncing. And we just needed a cow, so I was like, I'll buy a hoodie and just put on a cow hoodie and prance around. It was, yeah.
Which song did you do?
I did Carrie Underwood's Blown Away.
As one would.
Okay.
As you do. We love the conservative queen. But yeah, so we do the shows, and for me, I don't know how many of the performers I work with now would understand the importance and the relevance of Priscilla from 30 years ago. I don't even know if they would know the movie at this point. But to me, some of the performers I work with really embody that kind of flamboyant, over the top, look at the makeup, but it's still there's no headdresses and no emus on the head, and there's no no one's gonna go climb a mountain in drag in Blundstones. I'm sure they could. The children I work with, the youth I work with, very enthusiastic, a lot of energy, doing 2 shows a night. I'm in bed by 10. I'm sorry. But it's I don't know if they would know the impact, but the impact is still felt, I think, in the scene. Look at RuPaul. RuPaul is everywhere. We have our own Canadians Drag Race now, so I know who's going to be on the show from Vancouver.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't know if the young performers I work with know, but my friends who are my age that I work with, we all know this, and we all understand the importance of this kind of cinema, and the impact it did have on us. Like I said, I had that drag show in my own university called Priscilla Queen of the Highlands because of the impact of this movie in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it goes back. I mean, I know that in Australia that they mentioned. I think it was Tick that says, Bernadette was the original Les Girls. And that was that really successful, big, important club in Sydney. So I don't know a lot about drag history, but is that ground zero?
I don't know a whole lot about Australian drag either, but
yeah,
there were clubs that did, female impersonation, as the draw. And some of them, not all of them, but some of them ended up, coming out as trans later. And that's where I feel like drag is a safe space for people to kind of like play with gender and play with identity. And I definitely know a lot of people who started doing drag and then were like, hey, I really like how I look in this outfit with these big fake boobs and big hair and makeup. And then you start to see the changes go through, and it's just like, oh, okay, so this was your gateway into being your true self. This is fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
Mm-hmm. Like, why do you think this movie became such a phenomenon and wasn't just like a, like, for instance, like, you know, like a Muriel's Wedding came out at the time. Great movie. Love Muriel's Wedding. But it kind of doesn't have the lasting impact of this movie. Like, what do you think about this movie made it so important to people around the world who are watching it, and people still look upon it fondly today and want to see a sequel?
I'll just start and say I think there's a lot of ingredients. Like, for one thing, I think we all like a road trip movie, so it kind of just had that kind of classic storyline that we all like, and also it's a really tight movie, right? I mean, first song, phone call, get the gang together, get on the bus, right? Play the show, and it was over. Like, it was really tight. Like, it knew what it was doing. It didn't meander. To me, it was just like I was disappointed when it ended, which,
wow.
And yes.
Wow. I've never heard you say that ever.
I was going to say, that's a rarity for you.
I know. I know. It was 1 hour and 44 minutes. So maybe
I was going to say it's under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Locked in.
Yeah. It was a sweet spot or something for me, but I just felt like the ending was perfect. It tied. Also, I do think too that, for me anyway, watching it, that the movie didn't shy away from dark issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it holds up because of, well, it just, I personally love it. It's one of my favorite movies. But what got me is, these guys all agreed to do this movie knowing that there could have been so much backlash personally and career-wise, so, like, that's cool. And it really just normalized, it just showed us a little snapshot of gay life. And it's just like everybody else. They just happen to be on a bus that's carrying a giant shoe around the Australian outback, going to see the casino in Alice Springs. Like, it's very much like a standard buddy comedy and a standard road trip comedy. It just happens to be about two drag queens and their trans friend.
Yeah.
And it just, again, like, yeah, it doesn't just shy away from the dark side of things. Like, when the bus gets vandalized, I was not surprised to see that happen, having grown up in Nova Scotia and lived in Calgary for a little bit too long, because that stuff happens. I could tell you stories about what happened in Calgary. It's you think it's bad now? It was way worse then. Actually, it's still pretty bad now. But yeah, so it was just this standard, like, road trip comedy that had to have some level of, like, we can't be like butterflies and rainbows all the time. Mm-hmm. Here's some realities of it. And the fact that it was, you know, the AIDS thing, you know, we're past a point now where we shouldn't be making the AIDS references and the AIDS comments, but hey, it still exists and it's still here. Yes, there's PrEP. Yes, there's all these cocktails that keep people incredibly healthy if they are HIV positive or living with AIDS, but it's still kind of in the back of the mind. And in a way, I wish they had done a little bit more about that, because the lesbian community does not get enough credit for what they did during the AIDS crisis. Like, they were the ones who kept a community together. Like, shout out to the lesbians in the 80s, because they were doing all the work when all these men and their families were, like, they were being abandoned by their families, their community was leaving them. So to have that reference, that was my one complaint. Like, I wish they touched on that a little bit more. But again, it's a comedy. You don't want to, like, go too deep down into, like, here's the sad AIDS storyline of this this drag queen movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As an aside, have you read that book? I think My Government's Trying to Kill Me.
No, but it's on my list. I would love to read it.
What's
amazing!
this book?
One of the most amazing books I've ever read. Just fantastic. About the very subject. Well, it's about a young gay man who moves to New York City in, I think it's like 80. Well, 80, mid to late 80s. So I can't remember, maybe 87, because the AIDS crisis is what this book is about. But that's the very subject that he discusses, is all the lesbians that helped. And that's what the book's about.
I'm trying to convince my friend to write a book, because she was very active in a lot of that work here. And I'm like, you should write a book. It's really, and she's like, no one wants to read that. I'm like, I do. I know like 30 queers who would love to read about that.
Yeah,
Please write a book.
I think this book won like a big award as well. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, people are interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to read it. You have to read
Oh,
it.
I definitely will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, there's a lot of sort of in the movie, like, depictions of the typical Australian man throughout this film, like, usually for comedic effect. Like, do you think that this movie changed our perception of what, like, the stereotype Australian is like?
I think yes and no. Because like you said, Crocodile Dundee was, I think, the one that really kind of launched Australia and Australian cinema into like American pop culture. And that, because I remember that was everywhere. I think like Alf maybe did like Muppets did a parody of it. Like it was just everywhere.
Yeah.
So I was just, as a kid, like, oh, okay, crocodiles, outback, barbecues, poison spiders that will kill you by looking at you. So when this came out, I was like, oh, you're really taking that, like that stereotypical thing we've seen in Australian cinema about masculinity and just throwing all that away. But it also takes a lot of confidence and comfortability with your own masculinity to put on a dress and heels and go prance around the Australian outback. Or in some cases, the Bluntstones and the face, and then go climb a mountain.
That's so funny. I noticed the Bluntstones too. I was laughing so hard because I obviously
sent me.
Yeah, the first time I saw that movie, I wasn't aware that the world was going to be overtaken by Bluntstones. Like I had no idea.
The official footwear of East Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was so funny when I saw that going up the hill. But yeah, I also think we had like there was I'm going to say this name, and I apologize because I know he has not aged well. But there was a time where people liked him, was Mel Gibson. And, he was a pretty big ambassador for a kind of, I don't know, like a sweeter masculinity in the movies he was in. It wasn't always so overt. And I think people were a bit, Australians, but then look who proved me wrong. So anyway.
Yeah. Look who ended up being a stereotypical
Really doubled down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we still, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't, Russell Crowe. Yeah.
So we talked earlier to you about the fact that a sequel's being made.
Yep.
Oh.
And they're all in, I read too, all of them.
Yeah.
Even Terrence Stamp, who's like 89 or something.
I thought he was dead. So I was like, oh, they're going to Weekend at Bernie's him? Or is this like, are they going to CGI him in? Oh, no, he's alive. Oh, great. Okay, cool.
So Sid, like, what in your wildest imagination happens in the sequel?
This might be a spicy take. I would love for them to be pulled out of retirement by a group of young queer and trans performers to revisit the impact Priscilla had as a stage show in Sidney, and the impact that Priscilla, especially the ABBA, had. Maybe not like do like Mamma Mia thing, but like just bring them out of retirement, have them do numbers again, get them back together. But I don't love that it's 3 cis straight men playing the drag queens or playing a trans person now. So I'm happy to have them all back. I always thought Guy Pearce was in the family. Maybe he's just got a little bit of the little flounce to his walk that I read wrong. But I would love to see like a supporting cast of mostly queer and trans folks. I mean, in this day and age, there's no excuse not to have a couple of us on set, even in the background. Just put us there somewhere. But yeah, I think I would love to see them perform again. I would love to see how they would do costumes, because the costumes in the original movie were very 90s, very like again the emus. You're not going to get that in a lot of places.
The flip-flop dress was...
The flip-flop dress.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they still have that.
I would love to. I would love to know if they have any of these things. I'm sure they're like in a museum somewhere, like the Australian equivalent of the Mopop in Seattle.
Yeah. I mean, Lisa, what do you think will happen in the sequel?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it will be present day, and I think that it would be kind of nice to see them feel all the progress around them. I still think if they went to an opal mining town, things would be rough, but You know, I would like to see them sort of feel more, you know, accepted and a part of a big cultural movement. I mean, here's Sid talking about how important this movie is to so many people, and I'd like to see them enjoying that.
I just had a thought. What if Tick's son is now a performer and is looking for guidance and how to you know, break into the scene, and now this is who's going to teach him how to be a performer.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like because drag has become so hugely popular, there's going to be like a parade of cameos throughout this movie of like stars of the drag world, just like, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of musical numbers. And I mean, I feel like the musical numbers were a light touch in this movie. So I don't know, compared to like other musicals that we've seen. I didn't really like feel like I noticed like a big break for the music.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I know it's called a musical, but yeah, it wasn't like they broke out into song that often. There were just kind of like little bits on the bus of songs I've never heard of, like some.
Yeah, this is my kind of musical. This is my kind of musical. That's how much of a music touch I want in my musical. I don't like it when people are like, you know, just like every couple minutes breaking into an original song that I don't know.
I felt that some of the musical numbers were more of a showcase for the outfits as opposed to like a true musical number. Like this was just to show off what the costume department can do.
They were incredible, though. I also would. I mean, if I could order something, I would love to get some sort of backstory on Tick's wife. I mean, what was that whole situation was fascinating to me, right? That
the no nonsense lesbian, I love her.
Yeah, I know, with the kid, your
or
turn
bisexual,
now. Yeah, just like, and I was just enamored with her character so much. I would love to. I hope that she makes it back, or we learn something more about her.
I know so many queer women like who are like of that age who have that entire personality, and they are like the sweetest people, and they're so funny. And they're like, if you want anything done, get someone like that, and especially if they have a little like lanyard hooked to their belt, they will have things in order so quick. If I'm anywhere and I'm stressed and there's like a crowd or something's not going right, I'm like, find the lesbian with the clipboard. She'll fix everything. Find a lesbian with a lanyard. If there's two and one has a clipboard, one has a lanyard, everything will be fine.
Wow, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, how do we think this movie has held up?
Some of the racial overtones, very stereotypical of the 90s. Hopefully that's not going to make an appearance in the sequel. But I do know there is some level of racism still very prevalent in Australia, especially towards Indigenous Australians. I have a couple of friends who moved to Canada from Australia and have since moved back, and they're like, it's not really that great over here either. But yeah, my only my issue is like the racism is cringy to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Lisa, how does it stand up for you?
Yeah, I have to agree that really stood out. The whole ping pong scene was a lot, and yeah, in an otherwise very generous film in feelings and treatment of people, and a kindness. It really stuck out and was very odd to me, that that particular scene. So
yeah, I mean, I trust that they won't do a horrific Asian stereotype in the sequel.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. I feel like we've moved past that as a global community. We don't need to do that anymore.
And I'm not, and also just the weird, which I didn't understand. It wasn't just that, but it was also that Bob trying to like chaining her up and things was very dark and very very strange. Like anyway, so I mean that was a big glaring problem, but on the whole, I still think it's kind of refreshing. I mean, as much as I dearly love my phone and would die for it, probably, it is.
What did you just say? Wow.
It's my friend. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I really love now seeing movies without. I mean, and I know that's a trick of new cinema is like, how do we get people without their phones? Like, they got to lose them. They got to be out of service, something, right? But you really feel it in some of these movies, right? That that disconnect from the larger world, that they were so isolated where they were. And so I really like that part of the film too.
I would love to see how social media would factor into this sequel now.
That's true.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's like we plan all of our shows via, like, email and Instagram. Instagram DMs are how we, like, book acts. So I would love to see, like, how older drag performers trying to work in today's world are, you know, are they working, like, the old standards with the old club, and they're, like, jealous of the new crowd, like, doing all the fun stuff? Like, how is this gonna factor in? Like, are they going to start doing TikTok dances?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I mean. I feel like there's going to be just a parade of the younger generation in this new movie because there's just like so many well-known performers that probably all want to be in it. So
if they break down in the desert, they just put out like a bat signal almost or something with their phones, and everyone's there to help them.
Put the shoe in the air. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So do we think this movie still pops?
Yeah, it still pops.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's both a classic and a cult classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's similar vibes with Tu Wong Fu. You know, it's similar things there. Like, some of the stuff that was in that was it didn't age well, but it still holds up as a great queer movie. And the nuances and the way things were handled was pretty good for, you know, a bunch of straight people in theory, writing and directing and producing these.
So we like to leave our podcast on things we recommend. Sid, would you like to go first?
Sure.
As our guest.
I'm gonna go hyper local. Local Vancouver poet Dina Del Bucchia has just put out a book called "You're Gonna Love This." It's like a long form poem, and it's like an ode to reality TV within the context of her relationship with her partner. It is really good. I read it in an afternoon. It's fabulous. If you like poetry, highly recommend it.
Been meaning to pick that up. Dina's fantastic.
Oh, I love Dina. Everybody loves Dina.
Lisa, what is your recommendation?
Yeah, I started watching the new Netflix, I guess you would say it's sort of a procedural crime called Bodkin. I don't know if anyone has started watching it.
Is it good?
I'm enjoying it. I know it's but then it's funny because I said this to a friend. I said, I'm really enjoying that. And they went, oh, well, of course it's your favorite genre. And I went, what does that mean? They went, fish out of water. Move someone to another place. How will they get along and figure out the world? And I went, oh, you're right. That is my favorite genre. And I couldn't remember it. He was like, what about Ted Lasso? And I went, oh, yeah, Ted Lasso. And almost every other movie. So, yeah, I mean, there is the, people in small town Ireland, and it's got all those cliches of the, oh, you shouldn't be poking your nose around here and stuff like that. But they're podcasters, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, how many series are you going to see with featuring podcasters as their occupation? I feel like we're seeing more and more and more. Well, and it's always vaguely insulting because they make fun of them.
Yeah, but yes, because one of them was like at the very beginning, there's this woman who she's in London and she's an investigative journalist and she gets taken off her story because her editor is saying, like, these podcast procedurals, true crime things do really well for us, and we need some money. So it started off on a dark note, I'll have to say.
Yeah, I've been watching it too, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna recommend some music. I don't know if you two have heard of Cindy Lee. It's a band, a former front person of the band, the Calgary band Women, Patrick Flegel. Yeah. They have now become like they're still like a singer-songwriter, obviously a performer, but also like a drag performer. And this is a new iteration of their persona, and it's also like a bit of a rebel persona, because they won't upload the music to Spotify or any of the streaming services. You listen to the full 2.5 hour experience on a YouTube with no break. Like, it doesn't tell you where the song breaks are. It's just an experience. And people have described it as listening to the greatest radio station you have ever heard. It's just like this perfect music for... I thought it went well with what we were talking about, because like if you're going on a road trip, it's this perfect soundtrack, because it's I guess I would loosely describe it as rock and roll music, but it sounds vintage. It sounds like you're driving through a desert in California and a radio station is kind of drifting in and out of tune on the radio, but playing music that you love but you've never heard before. Like, it's so hard to describe. And this album's called Diamond Jubilee, and like I've just become obsessed with it. And
okay.
It's fascinating. And I think Cindy Lee's gonna be the next big thing in music. There, I said it. I'm probably like the millionth person to say that. So yeah, they've been getting tons of attention. It's good to have popped
this on the map for it. So that's what's important.
Yeah. Tune in right now to that 2.5 hour thing, because it's worth it. It sounds daunting, but it's worth it. And
Okay. I've got it here all ready to go.
All right. Well, thank you, Sid, for joining us to talk about this movie.
Thank you.
You are the perfect guest. We love having you on anytime you want to come back. We'd love to have you.
Oh, yeah, anytime. Run Lola Run's coming out back to theaters. I'm coming back for Run Lola Run.
Yeah, we already booked you for that. So, for everybody listening, if you want to contact us, you can email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com or reach us on the socials.
And if we want to see something you're producing, Sid, how do we do that?
You can follow Sleepy Queers Productions on Instagram. All of our shows are there. All of our tickets are there. We have a Spice Girls brunch coming up. We have a Twilight-themed show coming up.
Ooh.
Yes, that's going to be wild. We just did The Office, and then we're having a diva competition. So Chandelier, Dust, and Thanks Jem are going to do a brunch in June. And I'm just going to hit play on a playlist and let them go for 2 hours. And
amazing.
It's going to be fun. We have a lot of fun. Our shows are a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
If you want to follow my personal Instagram, it's at Bad Photo Good Food.
I love that Instagram account. I truly do.
Thank you.
And also, big thank you to Andrea Gin, who is our producer and co-host here and puts this all together. And remember to come tonight and join us all on a Tuesday, which felt like a Monday. But thank you.
Long weekends always screw me up. Yeah. But also, don't forget to rate our podcast 5 stars.
5 stars.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.